think for all time's sake, you're gonna have to say to you, resell sneakers.
Could you close the door to the property?
What's up, everyone? I'm Matt Welty. Wait, it's not that show. I'm here with Jaysse Lopez, aka TwoJsKicks.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
Complex Con last year when we were walking back to resorts, I
Yeah.
think is when I
ran,
last saw
ran
you.
into you then. It's been 6-7 years since we did full size run. A lot's changed in your life since then.
Same.
Yeah.
Same could be said about you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're in the news lately.
Yeah, it's like another day, another allegation, right? Like
Yeah.
it's it's really wild. I never thought it would come to this, you know.
Before we start, I'm bearing gifts.
This is funny, man. You know, like this was like a real thing. I was like dipping Slim Jims and Monsters for breakfast, but yeah, I needed this, man, especially after 2 flight cancellations and an hour of sleep all the way from Vegas.
Yeah. How's everything? I know obviously you have a lot going on, but just how are you in general?
How am I in general? I think really, I'm as good as I'm gonna be with everything going on, right? Like I want to try to get to a solution and correct and address and go to the counter and pay what I gotta pay and keep it moving at this point more than anything.
How's your mental state doing through everything?
I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you that every moment of every day would be a great one. Like I'm going through trying to create the resolution, right? And there's not as many people as you think in that camp and trying to create the solutions. It's just lawyers and a handful of friends that are willing to pick up the phone with stuff like this.
So you start Urban Necessities. That goes on. It goes. I don't want to say it goes viral, but kind of does. It goes worldwide, right? You know, you end up you start in Vegas, you open a store in New York City for a bit. That was through American Eagle, right? Yeah. So you've been dealing with other people investing in your business for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, American Eagle was a great opportunity. I learned a lot. I learned how not to do stuff, learned what things I needed to get better on, and, you know, another partnership that, is going in a different direction. But the brand, you know, what is it, almost 11 years now?
Yeah.
It became a pillar for a while of the community, and I think we were kind of like the poster boys for what resale looks like for a minute.
And I feel like it's interesting, though, because with that American Eagle thing early on, it was people always had something to say about your business deals around your store.
Yeah. I mean, I still, if I had the opportunity to do that deal again, I would, right? Because it was never about winning over, like, existing. It was always about, like, creating awareness through a demo that, like, is into it but doesn't really understand it, right?
And, you know, you have all this drama now with Shoe Surgeon and his partners, Dallas and Bimbo. Actually, I didn't know him, and I don't want to say anything like negative too much, but I saw a picture of him online in his suit, and I was like, if anybody's going to screw you out of your resale business, this is the guy. Am I tripping by saying that?
I think at the end of the day, if you don't put the parameters to protect yourself, it could be anybody, right?
Yeah.
But sure, the guy in a suit, I guess, is the stereotypical guy that comes, I guess.
Do you think that they tried to intentionally kind of screw you out of your business?
Great question. Only one that they could probably answer. I have my thoughts, and I just have a lot of, like everybody else, a lot of head-scratching situations with it that make me wonder what the real intention was, because it didn't start off like, hey, we're gonna try to jerk you out of your whole business in a year or less.
Did you feel like before that Dom Shoe Surgeon was like your friend or a friendly person towards you? Because you guys, I don't know what your relationship was, but you obviously probably run into each other in space before.
Never in person.
Yeah.
You know, obviously through social media, following them like everybody else. Yeah. Got to go to a couple activations, hellos in passing, and then, you know, from that sneaker con on, yeah, we did work or hang out a lot. You know, when I was in LA, because I was in LA like every other week, just because that's where their flagship is, their headquarters. You try to get along with the guys that you just did a deal with, right? Yeah. And Dallas wasn't much of an outside guy, and Dom was always the one that was doing all the activations and everywhere. So it kind of made a lot of sense to, you know, hang out a bit.
So you never had like the thought in your back of your head that these guys were gonna eventually take my business from me?
No, not at all. I mean, again, I think the way the conversation started, what I thought we had an understanding on is totally different than what's playing out.
Yeah.
You know?
If you were to take the moment where you signed the deal and flash forward in like 5, 6, 7 years, at that moment, what would you envision it would be like?
I don't think I could have forecasted some of the changes that have happened in the world. I don't think anybody could.
Yeah.
But my initial thoughts and, willingness to work with them was, okay, we've gotten it to where it's generating this and it's done that. And we've had these touch points and we have this, amazing store without them. Like if we could do half the stuff that we're talking about, this is going to be pretty epic, right? And it started off kind of epic, right? We do a licensing deal in Riyadh. We open a second pop-up in Vegas, and then there's a store in LA, So like, even though I wasn't necessarily all for some of those activations, the brand was growing, but we just were never really aligned on how we were running the business. There's changes that happen when you take on partners, but I didn't think we were going to change it as much as we did.
What was the moment when you kind of realized, you're like, this isn't the Urban Necessities that I knew?
One was when we were changing consignor rates. I was very against changing consignor rates without making it very transparent what we were doing. And there were changes that were happening on the back end that weren't really, let out the way they were supposed to. When we started opening stores that I just forecasted, I don't think this is going to play out really well, and here's my whys. And we're opening them anyway, and then it's not working, and then you're trying not to say I told you so, right? You're just trying to let's just close it. I wanted to close it right out the gate. I had a moment with Dallas where I had some differences that caused me to jump in the car, go talk to Dom and say, hey, we got a problem, because if he's talking to me like this, then he's representing us in a negative light, and I'm not for it. And I'm getting the replies of, it's above my pay grade. I'm paid to look the other way. And that's kind of started this whole thing that I start recognizing my problems September of the following year. And by December, November, December, I'm trying my best to get out. So December, I'm already contract being offered, signing it. And then that starts almost 3 years of trying to work my way out. And in working my way out, eventually my contract offer gets to 0. Yeah. And I'm fired in between that, and it just the whole time I'm just scratching my head in disbelief that this is going on the way it is.
Because you had said that the way that you had done it was you were trying to get out of
the brand.
And you were eventually trying to get them to buy you out, and I think the numbers were. It was $4.5 million, 3 million, 1 million, and then the final one was
half a million in product, and then it was
that was
0.
mostly your stuff to begin with,
right?
Or?
So I had between almost I had $500,000 to $600,000 in product between 2 accounts that got deleted.
Yeah.
So when my work email got deleted, those accounts get deleted, and then they're putting everything in boxes, and the boxes are sitting in the store for months. And I'm not going in the stores as much as I once used to. There's kids that work at other stores that are worked for us that are you couldn't get this guy out of the store.
Yeah.
And it's it changed to I'm not really allowed in the store. They didn't say hey, you can never go in the store, but it was stay away from the store, because the things you're telling the staff to do takes away from the business practices that we're trying to instill, which to an extent I understand, but it was breaking the ethos, in my opinion, of the brand.
Yeah.
Right? Months and months and months of you're watching your boxes get opened up and shoot. It's less and less boxes. You get to the point where you're dude, this is my stuff. You're selling my stuff off. And, I got to a point where, life, and I asked staff, hey, is this mine? Is this remaining my stuff? Yes. They put it in the truck. And I took it back, and I sold my stuff because it was my stuff. Now, as you've seen, everybody's talking about Jay took this, Jay took that, but I don't understand.
You said you stole a pinball machine?
Dude, I bought the pinball machines with my own money. And so that's why I keep saying, I can't wait till the day comes I feel like I genuinely want to see them come in and raid the place. And I genuinely want to get pulled. But, like, take me wherever you got to take me. Take my computers, take my phones, scrape through my text messages, take my emails. You're going to, like, when you start piecing together all my transactions out of personal bank accounts and my 2J's bank account, which for the record, 2J's doesn't owe any money. This is what, like, a lot of people are not understanding. There's two different businesses. It's Urban and 2J's. And all my expenditures are either out of my personal account or 2J's. They brought up like a house and a mortgage, but that's a house that we bought that we're like leasing out to the store that has employees living in it.
Because there was that comment by the woman,
Yeah.
Kayla Markin, I guess, who's the director.
the key cog in the scamming that's going on over there. She's the one that pushes all the buttons.
So she had left a comment actually on the Complex Sneakers post.
Yeah, I
saying,
saw it.
that it was a couple $100,000 here and there, $75,000. Babe, she said that you talked to your wife like inappropriately in front of her. Like, what do you have to say about her comment?
I mean, what she thinks is inappropriate is totally normal to us. I don't think I talk to my wife, especially in public, in front of somebody that we don't really even know. We're in a bank. Why would I even be talking crazy, right? We're coming to add you to the account so you could do what you got to do. The $75,000. When you guys come and look, which you can't do it fast enough, you'll see that came out of a personal bank account, a personal joint bank account with me and Joni, and I moved that money into 2J so I could then use my personal credit cards, because when we did this merger, all my credit cards, which I only had one for Urban, for myself, was an American Express that I was asked to give back and I don't use. Don't have a debit card for the business. Like, look at me. I understand why it's hard to trust people that look like me. And I worked really hard to not touch money from the business unless someone else was there with me. I didn't do debit transactions, wires, withdraw money. Like, I'm not even in there for the last 3 years.
I think one of the things that gets lost in the mix too, that you mentioned early on when everything came out, was that obviously your wife Joni having cancer, but it feels like that played a large role in the decision for you to even get into this situation to begin with. Is that fair to say? Or
very fair to say, because like, look, I can't do what Joni does, right? And if I did what Joni does, I can't do what I do, right? And the brand was really special because, like, you have a scenario where there was always somebody that was gravitating to one or the other. We found out, that February, so I'm trying to run the business with her working from home while she's sick, and it's just, the writing's on the wall. It's not sustainable. We're not going to be able to make it through. It's not that we weren't paying bills or that we weren't, making money. How the hell do I do her job while I'm in the store 80 to 90 hours a week? There's just no way, right? So, should I have looked at other people, listened to other offers? Probably, but
do you think it ever would have been best to maybe just hire someone to try and replace her role instead of getting into...
I tried, but convincing to give Joni's job up to somebody else prior to...
Yeah.
Joni was really hands-on too. She was way more hands-on than I was when it came to all that stuff. And did we have some, missteps and along the way that obviously could have been avoided if we had more help? Yeah, 100%. But this took on a life of its own. That's what I think people forget. We weren't a corporation. We're not publicly traded business. It's just a guy and a girl that started off a kitchen table and it turned into that. We were just trying our best to kind of keep it going.
When I look at the scenario and think about it, it's like, you're a sneaker guy, Dom's a sneaker guy, even though he's gotten like very like corporate-y with a lot of the deals and whatever. He has to make money. I'm not gonna like hold it against him, and he's like made the shoe surgeon a much bigger thing. But did you kind of feel like at first you're like, all right, I'm a sneaker guy, he's a sneaker guy, this is just going to be some like sneaker guy sort of business, and then it turned much into like
when I looked at their operation and their setup, right? I was like, man, if we had this at Urban, this would be like 21 Mercer in a sense, right? I've always looked at retail like, how do I get my guests to stay for north of 30 minutes? Because if I could do that, I don't necessarily need you to buy something, even though we do. But like, if you're in there for more than 30 minutes, chances are you had a positive experience. Chances are you're going to tell somebody else that's into this stuff. So when I was looking at the services that they were offering, I'm trying to incorporate them to the store. I'm like, oh, this is no brainer, because that's going to take at least 30 minutes to do. And it's a higher price point, right? I never took Dom to be like a try hard with sneakers, right? Like he understands like the basics, but he's not like the guy that goes, oh, hey man, did you see that this is coming out? And there's not a knock on him. That's just not what he's into.
There's been, a lot of commentary out there where they're just like, oh, the biggest takeaway from this is that 2Js is just like bad at business. And that's why this happened. Like,
everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? I think the biggest misconception is everybody thinks that I did this without CPAs and lawyers. We had lawyers look at this, the same lawyers that did the American Eagle deal. And look, it's only a bad deal, and we're only talking about the deal because someone's not holding up their end of the bargain, right? Now, that's for you to side with whatever side, and I can't really lose sleep over what side you want to be on with this. I just know what my intentions are, and I know what's going on, and there is not what I signed up for.
What about the whole liability aspect? Because I know that you had said, that was probably...
It's only an issue
probably the thing that caught you most off guard, where you didn't realize that, or I don't know if you didn't realize, but you kind of...
I understood there was some liability, but I didn't understand that there was, like, full liability, right? But again, it's only an issue if we're not doing what we're supposed to, right? If this goes in the direction... And, that's shoulda, coulda, woulda at this point. But if it goes in the direction that we all initially had talked about, then that's not even an issue. We're at where we need to. We're raising what we need to. And there's the layers that I wanted to see in there, right? When you don't report to the state, like the change of managing members, right? And then you don't report, hey, this guy's email's no longer there. And then... Yeah. They come knocking on the door because obviously someone had to have got served papers for it to get to seizures of bank accounts, right? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. It's like, forget the differences. You don't like me, you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you. Like, there's like the lack of it being humane, right? Like, especially with what's going on with my wife. That's what we got taught, to keep the lights on, roof over our head, and pay like the medical bills, and now that's just gone. When I look at the entire thing, I know that I can't put our dollar or our problems in front of people that have respected my brand and allowed my brand to grow there, and that it's their money that's helping the brand get to where it's at. So I have to take accountability, even though the other side's like, nah, let's just bankrupt it. And I'm like, well, even if you go the bankrupt route, I still don't want consigners to fall there. And I don't even know the number, right? And it's like everybody's like another thing that keeps getting said is like, how do you not know what you owe? Well, I mean, I'm not getting paperwork, right? Yeah. Like, I'm fighting for paperwork. And now they're trying to like make me sign paperwork to be able to look at paperwork, but that's the fiduciary responsibility that's in the contract. So it's like, I don't know.
Can we talk about the video you posted?
Which one?
The one with you going live and pulling up on the store.
Tell me why we got U-Hauls in the back of the store. You want to tell me why you're packing consignor product into this truck?
This is mine, TJ. This is mine. I'm a consignor.
Man, was I mad, bro. I've never driven that fast. I live like 30 minutes away from the store. I got there in like 12. I pull up. I see this truck. I park right in front of the truck. I open the gate. This kid's like, "Oh, I'm 2Js. I'm a consignor." I've never seen this kid in my life.
Oh, he was pretending to be you? Wait.
No. You're talking about the one when I pulled up with the truck. Yeah. So I like pull up to the U-Haul.
Oh, got you.
I pull up, park in front of the U-Haul. I open the U-Haul. I'm like, yo, what do you want to tell me what you're doing with this consignor product? He's like, nah, I'm a consignor. This is my product. I hear him say that, but I don't know that. I've never seen that kid in my life. And if I have, it definitely wasn't an interaction that was like enough for me to remember it, right? And we spoke once the camera was off. Like, I got him in my car and he tried to explain, and I'm like, dude, just put yourself in my position. I pull up to my store, no one's letting me in, they're giving me a hard time to get in. I ain't never had security guards in my store. That's their security guard.
So you had like that old Spanish guy.
Yeah, that's their security guard. For that, he works the surgeon events and all that other stuff. He ain't one of my employees. He's never, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad. Like, you hear me talking to him.
Yeah.
If you translate what I'm saying, I'm like, dude, I love you, but like, please don't get involved. This has nothing to do with you. Like, please don't be involved. And so, like, I go back to that kid after the camera shut off, and I'm like, look, man, I have no idea who you are. I don't have no paperwork. I don't know who to believe at this point. This all seems like sus to me. It was like a uniform reply. And then you see Dallas sitting there like, you can help us, like, get consignor product. My man has never talked to anybody like that ever.
That was I feel like one of the craziest parts of the thing is that,
Oh, come help us?
No, the fact that you open the door
and he's
right there. Because, like, I didn't know who he was beforehand. I still don't know much about him, right? But it seemed like, there have been some stories written, like, he's the real man behind all of Surgeon's business.
Well, I mean, I had so the first conversation of, like, hey, we want to bankrupt this thing. My first reply was, when Isaac called me, was like, dude, like, off. Like, why would I help you? Then I, like, calmed down, picked up the phone. I said, how did we get here? Right? And then, like, now you're telling me what you got to do or what you want to do. And then that following Wednesday, that's when the accounts got seized. That Friday, I'm in LA spending 7 hours with Isaac and then Dom and then one of our partners from Saudi. And they're trying to pass the buck to Saudi. Right? And I'm like trying to tell Saudi, like, dude, this isn't your problem. I understand that you're tied to this, but I don't see it.
Are they panicking because of,
I haven't heard much from them because, again, it's not their problem and they don't want to get in the middle, which I totally understand, right? I just have a real hard time to ask any of my friends within this industry or people that want to help, because I've had offers from everybody. Like, dude, let's go back in there and fix it. Like, yo, you'd be the guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, guys, one, I haven't been in this industry realistically hands-on in 3 years. The world's changed. And I don't know how bad it is in there still, right? And so then all these guys that are trying to buy it are getting NDAs, and I don't even know if the numbers even match, right? Like, how do you get somebody to commit to saving a sinking ship in a matter of days, but we need weeks and months to go through thousands and thousands of line items?
Do you think that it's almost like a futile attempt in the sense that everyone's saying that resale as a whole is dead?
I don't think resale's dead. I think that we got to get a little bit more creative and we got to focus more on the experiences than every singular transaction, right? Urban worked because it was more than just a transaction. It was an experience. It was like, it was part of the culture in a sense, and it was like people bought into who Joni and I were. The second we stopped doing that and storytelling, that's when it got tough, right?
Yeah, because I feel like early on when you opened that store in New York City, there were a lot of people who were telling me they wanted...
Store did 10 million.
They wanted to go to your store, not because necessarily they wanted to buy a pair of sneakers, is because
they just wanted to see it.
They watched you on YouTube and they liked your story and they wanted to go interact with it.
If they would have let me open that door on the side of Houston, we would have probably done 15, 16 mil out of that place, out of that little back corner. I drove by it today coming here, and it's like... They cemented the door, man. The world's definitely changed.
You said you have a lot of people wanting to help you out. You don't want the help. Do you see, if this doesn't work out, do you see a future for yourself in sneakers, or is there a pivot?
Look, man, I think more than anything, I want to try to help people, right? Like this, I before I did sneakers, like a lot of resellers, I did cell phones, and before I've just done retail, right? Yeah. And like my previous job my last job before sneakers, I lost my job fighting too hard for the little guy that had the big cell phone bill because he either went out of the country or forgot to pay a bill. And I didn't understand back then that like I was taking away from the margins of the business by fighting so hard. If I wouldn't get the answer, I'd pick up the phone and call back till I got a rep that would like actually take some sort of accountability for like trying to, you know, help or whatever. If I can't do sneakers anymore, which I don't know if I don't know if the world's gonna let me, right? That's the first one. I might want to do it.
Do you think you're going to be like not blackballed per se, but people just wouldn't want to be involved with you because they saw everything?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the number and how long it takes for the truth to come out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, please come get my phones. Please take my computers. You don't believe me? Don't believe me. My black and white text messages, emails, phone calls are gonna, you know what I mean? That's my only vindication at this point, right? And I don't want to, in a sense, I don't want to pass the buck off to somebody else, because if I pass the buck off to somebody else, the truth won't be let out. And these guys might be able to go do this at some point again. At this point, I'm not even fighting against them anymore. At this point, like, what's right is people need to know where my flaws were. And I've always said that when I make mistakes, you need to know about those more so than my wins, right? That's what it's always been. That's being transparent. That's growing. That's learning, right? Like, and so, you know, I just hope that doesn't take 5 or 6 years, because, you know, where's Joni in this? And am I going to still be motivated to be outside in any sort of capacity if something were to happen to Joni? You know what I mean? And it's not, I'm not trying to make it about her, but it's like, it's been rough to watch her go through what she's going through, and now every thought is about this, you know, not her actual fight.
Have you like kind of compartmentalized, you know, a scenario where they do give you the business back, but it's like obviously not a great situation for you, like the worst scenario you would take it back under?
I mean, look, is there a world where I would take 100% accountability for something I started? Yeah, 100%. But it's got to make sense. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm not Obamacare. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bail you out of, what if this is 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 100 million? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I know what the taxes were before I left. I know what the taxes are that are owed today.
Yeah.
That have nothing to do with the taxes that were owed. Like, you know, I don't have an understanding of consignor debt. I don't have an understanding of my loan debt. I finally, you know, like, I've been begging for this paperwork to be able to see stuff. I finally went to the bank yesterday and had people that helped me get back in there and at least be able to like log in and download CSV files. And I scraped the last 6 months, and we're paying somebody. It just ain't the consignors and the taxes, but I've paid $600,000 in loans, which I don't even know what the number is to the loans. I don't know who signed for the loans, and I don't know the dollar amount for the loans, right? So if I've paid $600,000 in the last 6 months in loans, then I probably took 7. Did I take 8-figure loan? Right? And then, like, the crazy thing for me, my real problems, my disconnects started happening 2 years ago. This legal problem for them with Nike, that was a $60 million settlement, right? That really started 2 years ago. People found out a year ago, and that's when, you know, it went public. There's no way you could talk me out of not believing that they spent over $1 million on legal fees.
Do you think that these two
there's a
things
direct correlation? A million %. Because how does a business that has never taken a loan outside of PayPal loans to go to SneakerCon, I've never taken a loan for the business. How do I all of a sudden have like this credit card, this loan? Like, who signed for that?
Okay, so you think that Shoe Surgeon and his associates used the money from Urban Necessities to help pay his fight against Nike?
I mean, no one's proving me otherwise, right? So now here's the other thing. When you look at this like scenario, right, it was for infringement. To put it into perspective, right, my last sit-down phone call and 3 text messages to my lawyer cost me $11,600. So what does a year's worth of that cost? Right? And so then I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but when I look at, has there been anybody else that's been sued or had a settlement with Nike for infringement?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. And that guy had to pay $8 million.
Yeah.
That guy didn't have classes, and that guy didn't have the same price points for his product.
It wasn't as big as like a kind of name, right?
It wasn't as big as name, and it wasn't as big as a lawsuit either, right? So if that guy settled for $8 million, is this a $10 million repayment in 10 years? $20 million repayment? Like, why did I have loans?
So you think they're siphoning the money off the not even just the legal fees, but you think that they knew that this was coming and they were like, hey, we have this big asset, we can suck it dry and just...
I'm unsettled, right? I'm not comfortable with this situation because obviously I'm not getting the fiduciary responsibilities to happen at any part here as far as filling me in as what's going on or not. Now, granted, I'm not involved on the surgeon side, so I can't understand or know what's going on with that lawsuit, because then that would breach their contract and that would be a whole another problem for them. I got consigners that are yapping that they've had issues in the last 2 years, right? I stopped having access to operational stuff from a monetary standpoint or a paying out standpoint in that same time frame, and all of a sudden I got all these crazy loans that I don't even know the dollar amount. Consigners aren't getting paid. Like, I don't understand how the store's still open, but we're not paying taxes or consign. Who are we paying?
Yeah.
Until those questions get answered, then how can I answer that honestly or not have that thought? And that's my frustration with it. And so I've been asking for the paperwork. I mean, again, it was a fiduciary responsibility that at one point I used to get the Excel spreadsheets on a weekly basis, and it stopped years ago, right? And now I'm being asked, hey, you got to sign NDAs and all this other stuff because you're like damaging the business because you're running your mouth. Like, yeah, I'm going to run my mouth because our business is doing janky business, and I'm genuinely concerned for consigners. If that store closes and they take that product out, that's now product that consigners are out, and we're not like being mindful of what people got going on in the world. And right now I'm walking around outside, I don't even know who we owe, and everybody's pointing a finger at me.
Do you think that through all of this that it's either going to help people want to rally behind you and, you know, support the business harder, or do you think it's kind of soured the business's name in the grander scheme of things?
It's a great question. And I think that you can make a great case for both sides. I think, again, it's... if I get in there, is it manageable, right? Like, let's just say, for sake of conversation, it's let's say it's $2 million, right? Like, all of it. If it were $2 million, I could probably handle it without having to even pick up the phone, right? Just sell a house here, sell a house there, work out repayment programs for whatever loans were taken out. But then I gotta have those guys actually sign paperwork, because I got multiple scenarios where they haven't signed paperwork, and then I've gotten multiple lawsuits on my brand for behavior that they've conducted, right? Even with Complex. You know, you got a lot of people out there that have seen how I conduct business, and they see the differences. And again, I'm just trying to take accountability.
So do you think that in, 3 months time span or whatever down the road, 6 months from down the road, do you think we're still going to be talking about this, or do you think it's all going to be...
I hope not. Like I said, I downloaded CSV files from the bank from November 11, 2022 till yesterday.
Yeah.
And 1 month was over 6,000 line items, right? So I got a little bit of scraping to do. And then that's just like my novice eyes on it, right? I got to get real forensics in there. And then the other thing is the value that you're saying that is consignor product that's in there. Is it really in there? Because I got tons of text messages from other people that are saying, hey, the Urban's shopping this list around, and there's like even Fat Joe shoes on this list. And we didn't buy Fat Joe shoes. Fat Joe consigned with us. Why is his shoes on a list that you're selling? I got consigners that have 4 or 5 different accounts that are like, I haven't been paid in a year, and shoes are still selling. It's like, it's janky, bro. It's really janky.
Since, well, obviously the whole world's going to see this. If you could say anything to Dom right now, what would it be?
For once in your life, do the right thing. For once. I don't know how you could just continue to allow this to be going on unless you're in on it, and everything that you've said to me in person is just an act, right? Because it's 2 different people, email and person.
So, if this all doesn't work out, what's the next thing for 2Js in your mind? Have you even thought about that, like a life after Urban Necessities?
I can't. I don't have any interest in trying to understand what is possibly next for me until I get this resolved. I don't care if this is the last thing I do. If it were up to me, if I could, like, get an understanding of what's going on, even when the ship sinks, and once I have visibility or access to consignor debt and, like, what's missing, I want to try to take the steps to correct that with interest.
All right. Jaysse, that's it, man.
I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah,
Thank you.
For sure.